Gauntlet is marked as dark and energetic with a half note equaling 80 beats per minute. I think that 80 beat per minute indicator is probably the maximum tempo range that you want to go. Doug Spada, one of his pet peeves is when orchestras play music too quickly. How do I know that? Well, because there's a website called DougSpada.com. It's got a lot of cool information on it. It's got a lot of cool information about Gauntlet. It's also how I know that Spada is pronounced Spata because it says so on the webpage. If we go much faster than 80 beats per minute, we're likely to lose a lot of the style and shaping potential for Gauntlet. So I would discourage you from going too much faster than that. You also want to be careful because these short notes tend to rush. And so you might end up going faster than 80 beats per minute and not really intend to. You might have set the tempo well from the beginning. And, sometimes in a performance things happen and people get excited and they just start taking off. And, it happens, but maybe try to dial back that tempo a little bit. Now, what if we go slower than 80 beats per minute? I think it's not going to be all that offensive. I guess it would depend on how much slower we go. If we're going fast enough to where these quarter notes here don't sound weird, if you go too slow, they're going to sound kind of funny. But if you slow it down a little bit, maybe you're working on tuning, maybe you're working on the changes from half position to first position, and the students need just a little bit more time, you could probably get away with going 72 beats per minute at the half note and not offend too many people. Tempo and style are connected, and if we look especially at this short section, depending on what tempo we go, the space in between these notes are going to be longer or shorter depending on what the tempo is. If it's too fast, then there's going to be less space in between notes. Too slow, and it might sound awkward because there's more space in between the notes. But as long as we pick a tempo that doesn't affect the style too much, then I think it should be okay. I think there's plenty of ways to create an energetic sound without having to push the tempo too far. And if your group needs to play this a little slower, you can achieve that energy in other ways, with your articulations, with your bowings, by putting in greater dynamic shapes. That's going to give you that dark and energetic sound without pushing their technique faster than what it should go. There aren't any tempo changes in Gauntlet. There are no accelerandos or ritardandos. Well, I should qualify that. There's no written accelerandos or ritardandos. Sometimes, we can play this and accidentally slow down or speed up. But, for the most part, the students should be able to just set a tempo and go and hopefully keep that beat. If you've got issues with students rushing, make sure that they're all in the same part of the bow when they're playing some of this stuff. These quarter notes, you probably want to have them play towards the middle of the bow, especially if they're rushing. If they're playing too close to the frog, you might want to get them to come out towards the middle a little bit. Sometimes, actually most of the time when they're playing closer to the frog, they'll drag, and that might create tempo issues with the violas and the violins when they come in here, measure 5, so be careful. You also want to make sure, especially if you're playing some of this stuff off the string, that the students set the bow each time they're about to come in, because you want them to come in together and you don't want them to rush. I would discourage you from rushing in Gauntlet, not just because you want to do well at your contest or evaluation, but did you know that Gauntlet was Doug Spada's first published piece? That's kind of special. And remember, Doug Spada's pet peeve is when orchestras go too fast. So let's try to do an extra careful job of staying with the beat and not going too fast here in Gauntlet. For the most part, when I hear Gauntlet played, I hear most orchestras staying within tempo range fairly well. And if anything, I hear orchestras playing on the slow side, again, because of the technique. They're just being careful. And that can be appropriate as long as, you're within the stylistic range. On occasion, though, I have heard orchestras play this at quarter note equals 80 instead of half note equals 80. So basically half time. And that's kind of not good. So make sure that the half notes get in the beat and not the quarter note, or else it could be very awkward at that tempo. There are some other pieces out there for string orchestra that also have that, they have the half note equals however many beats per minute thing, and sometimes we don't pick up on that. Like a lot of the Percy Grainger scores, for instance, have like a ton of information at the beginning, and there's a tempo indicator somewhere in there, and that tempo ends up getting neglected. So it's important that we read through the score and that we take all the information that we have to try to make this as close to the composer's expectations as we can. Doug Spada has a really inspiring quote on his website, and it says, "The map is always the same, but every teacher will take a different path, and every student will take something different away from the journey." We'll end the video with that quote, and in the next video, I'll talk about some common problems that I hear when orchestras are performing Gauntlet and give you some tips and tricks on how to clear those up before you get to the performance so that you can have better results at your contest or evaluation. We'll see you next time.